Hi guys, welcome back to Cupcakes and Protein Shakes. I am your host, Savannah. Today I'm joined with a special guest. It's called Bikini Chit Chat. So we're sitting down with a fellow competitor. So welcome to the show. Introduce your name. Tell me where you're from today and how's it going?
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Jennifer Garland. I go by Jenn. I am a competitive bikini athlete in the NPC specifically. So I'm actually currently in prep, hopefully going for a pro card at nationals this December. So we'll see how that goes. This will be my second time going to nationals. So wish me luck. But I currently live in New York City. I actually moved here in July this past year. So I moved in prep, originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Very different, very large change, but something I'm easily adapting to. I actually think I fit in pretty well here. So I'm pretty excited to continue to check it out and actually be able to explore New York City whenever I'm finished with prep.
Did you just move?
Yeah, in July. So I lived in St. Louis I went to school around there. I'm originally from Illinois, went to school around the St. Louis area and kind of stayed there until July this year, moved and just started prep back in March, February, actually. Had some ups and downs, but we're still kicking it and moved right here in Manhattan. So
Yeah, that's a huge difference. And then
yeah.
You're gonna have really, I mean, it's not that much different of a winter, but I feel like getting to see Christmas in New York will be great.
I know. This is actually talking to my family. This is the first time I'm not going home for any holidays. One, I'll be in prep and I'm traveling whenever we're having my big family Christmas. We have a lot of schedules to kind of condense into figuring out a schedule for actual large gatherings. But we talked about some people coming up here to visit me so that we can maybe do a lot of those things, but I'll actually be out of prep whenever Christmas hits. So I'm really excited to really explore and be able to do that, because now that I live here, I can just do that stuff every day if I want to.
Like the food scene too, actually being able to try different restaurants, like that will be incredible.
Yeah. The best thing right now though is I can have coffee and tea, and there's literally coffee and tea everywhere. Like I think that's people that live here, like coffee is like their diet. That is their breakfast. That is their lunch. And a lot of places, granted, I live on the Upper East Side, so there's a lot of it's like a hospital district. So being a coach or competitor and stuff, that's not my full-time job, which is something that I think would be really cool to discuss. But like I live in such like an area where there's hospitals just right down the strip. So there's constantly ambulance, all these things. But my point was there are all these coffee shops and they're open until like midnight, 1 a.m. There'll be a lot of like coffee and wine shops. Cause I mean, doctors and nurses and techs and all these people, some of them go to work at, 10 p.m., midnight. ER shifts are crazy. Like you could work 11 p.m. to 11 a.m., midnight to noon, so people go and get their coffee at all different hours of the day.
I love it.
But I can explore that. So I'm excited. My goal, and I've been doing pretty well, is to try a different place almost every time I go out to buy a coffee. And that is not impossible at all here. So
Yeah, I don't relate. I don't drink coffee. I do not like it. I know I'm a weirdo, but I know everyone of my friends too. They're like into their coffees, and especially on prep, like it's easy to fit in like still fun drinks that are just like hot and savory. So, okay, let's go back to the beginning though, because I want to know, when did this whole thing start? When was the first time that you were introduced to the sport, and like what intrigued you to enter?
sure. So I think a good place to start is growing up. I was a gymnast, I was a cheerleader, track runner, all of those things, like high school, normal stuff. And then I actually went to college to be a D1 cheerleader, and I did that for my first degree, we'll say that, in college. And then once I graduated, I moved to Memphis to actually pursue a PhD. And to be honest, I was very scared of like not having that athletic regiment to my day and coming up with it myself. And I had followed some people that went to my university that competed prior. And I had also done pageants growing up. So I was like, okay, well, that all looks fun. Like that looks so pretty. Like I want to step on stage looking shredded and fit. And like, I want to look like that. And so I had reached out to some people in my area, and I noticed some people at my gym. Like I had saw bodybuilding on Instagram. I say in quotes because I didn't fully know what it was at the time. And I reached out and they're like, hey, this is a really good person in the area. So I had reached out to a coach in the Memphis area, and I was with her for about a year or two, just to try it out. I just wanted to see if I enjoyed it. And literally, I was like, yeah, this is amazing. I love it. Like, it's another way to challenge myself, it's another way to grow. It was just something completely different than I was used to, instead of just like, waking up and doing your cheerleading routine full out 5 times at 5 a.m. Like, it was just way different. But with my gymnastics background too, and I was highly competitive, like elite gymnast, it kind of combined like everything that I've done growing up, as far as like the competitive athleticism, the challenge of pushing your body pretty hard, as well as being pretty and glammy and getting to show off everything that you worked for, like you do with pageants and gymnastics. So, and cheerleading. So it's kind of a big combination of all of that. So I did that. My first show was, I started prep in like, I started with a coach 2016, and I did my first 2 shows 2017. They were like 2 weeks apart. And then I originally went back to school for nursing. So I'm in a healthcare role full time Monday through Friday now here in New York. Um, but I've just kept up with it. So there's been some ebbs and flows of like, I've always had a coach since 2017, but I've taken some years off of competing in the meantime to go back and get like my accelerated nursing degree, graduate. You had COVID, you have all that stuff. So I'm still kicking it today. And I was one spot away from my pro card the last time. So we'll see if anything changes this year. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. So between now and then, the first show, how many shows have you done total?
let's see. 1, 2, 3, 7 or 8, I think. 2 of them being national shows.
Oh wow. Okay. And that's since your first show is what year?
2017.
Okay. So 2017, what do you remember about the first time? Because like as an athlete background with cheerleading with pageants, was it an easy transition, I feel like, or was there still those nerves? Like, do you remember anything about it?
So I tell my friends this all the time, actually. I was a competitive singer growing up too. And I would much rather step in front of people and do something where it's like 10,000 people, 100,000 people. I would much rather perform at something with a larger audience than to like sit in my bedroom and sing for 2 of my friends to make sure it sounds okay. Reason being is like I can see their beady eyes just like staring at me. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I can just feel what they're feeling. I pick up on that energy. I feel like if something was off, like I could see it. Whereas if like it's 100,000 people, you can't really, you can't depict anybody apart. So for me, it's a lot easier to do things in front of a larger audience because it feels like it's just me and then a bunch of these random people that I can't piece their energy or emotions off of. So for me, stepping on stage, being a gymnast, being a cheerleader, we went to Daytona Nationals. That's on ESPN. Like that's all very natural for me. And growing up, I was always the person that loved to be like front and center. Like I wanted to be middle of the pyramid. I wanted to be front and center of the dance. Like that's just what I wanted to be. I wanted to be first on the podium. So kind of being in the spotlight and being on stage was a very easy transition for me. I know how to dance and move my body and be elegant from gymnastics and cheerleading as well. So the posing, luckily, came very easy for me. It does not come easy to a lot of people. And I also coach posing too, because of that reason. But for me, it was such an easy transition, and that's not what I was worried about. I think my very first show, I literally had no idea. I looked like I was still 15 weeks out. Like, let's be honest. I had never done it before. Knowing what I know now for like what it takes to actually be competitive and to be a pro, right? It's a lot different. But at first I was just like, oh my gosh, I just worked so hard. Like, let's go. I have this beautiful glitzed out bikini and my jewelry. I was ready to go. It was so, so fun. And now that I've learned like what it is and I decided to continue with it, I chose to dive deeper into educating myself on how you actually need to look, the things that are actually like the judges are actually looking for my specific category. which kind of leads me into why this prep is kind of so long, because like I could have competed 8 weeks ago if I really wanted to, but like my tie-ins weren't exactly where we wanted them. So we're just kind of giving my body time, and it'll tell me when we're ready.
Yeah, it's different. Like the beginning, when I look back at some of the things I was doing in like the early days of 2017, like the food choices, the even the food workout, what I thought was a hard workout versus now, like what actually is a hard workout is so different. And just like the mindset, the more that you know as you get into the sport, you're like, oh, okay, so that prep I didn't try. Like you have a prep where you do it and you're like, okay, whatever. Like I gave my all. And the first one, it's some people go like all in or nothing, or they just kind of like think they're doing it, like, oh, a few bites here and there, not gonna hurt. Missed cardio session's not gonna be that big a deal. Like, and then you get to stage and you're like, oh, I see those little reps, those little bites, those little things, those do matter and they do add up. Then the next time, like, okay, I'm gonna go a little harder. Then it's just more and more and more. So now that we've been one away for pro card, let's go into that. What was different about that prep? Because that the first time that you were at nationals, or had you been before?
Yeah, it was the first time.
Okay, so first time going to nationals, missed pro card by one.
Yeah, I will say, what you had just said, there were so many gems in there. Like you just learn so much throughout the process, but like I even tell just my lifestyle athletes, right? Like every little thing adds up. Every good positive thing that you do adds up to the long-term goal. So, and it doesn't have to be positive. Like there was a prep where I kept eating trail mix and I wouldn't tell my coach. Like this was years ago. So if my coach might listen to this, um, I'm not doing that right now, but like I did at that point, and like I was still losing weight, so it's fine. But I'll be honest, I looked like a wet piece of bread on stage. Like I just did. And then I realized it's because I kept cheating on my diet. I wasn't truly in a caloric deficit. So there's definitely some things that you learn over time. But what was different about this prep is one, I definitely have a coach now that like truly knows the standard of what your body should look like to step on stage. And I think in all reality, like I'm kind of a tough love kind of person. So like I don't like when people sugarcoat things with me. And I kind of like being like I like when people are hard on me because it pushes me to be better. Like I'm somewhat, I don't want to say even like perfectionist, but like I do something and then it's like, okay, but what's the next best thing I can do? I'm like constantly looking. I can reward myself and be present and happy with where I'm at, but then I'm like, okay, so like what's next, right? So the one thing that I love about my coach is I'm always afraid to like let him down. It's almost like a dad situation. Like I do not want to disappoint him. So every day I want to execute perfectly so I can come and tell him how I executed perfectly. And then obviously there's so many things that come with that, as far as like you actually seeing the results that you want to see, you actually getting the outcome that you want. So I think my mindset going into my last prep, I didn't even know like what nationals was like coming into it. Like he had educated me over time, but I obviously knew like, okay, you just go there to get your pro card. Like I didn't know what I had to look like. I had never been that shredded in my life. In my life, I will never also be that shredded again. I was too shredded, which is kind of funny. But the prep was different because one, I didn't want to disappoint him. So I was so motivated and so driven. I was like, I know I have the potential based on everybody's feedback. So like, let's do it. But what you said that really stuck with me was the training. Like a lot of people do not understand how much your training intensity goes into your overall like metabolic drive, your calorie burning, the way your muscles maintain and shape and stay in your prep, as well as contributing to your caloric, density at the end result. So like truly learning how to train to failure was like mind blowing for me. So my coach actually makes us submit training videos every week. It can be typically like whatever ones that you want, but I always try to do the ones that I either struggle with or constantly need, like something doesn't feel right, like I'm using my back too much or whatever the case is. So he can kind of break it down for me. But we do a lot of like tempo and then reps in reserve or reps in range or whatever the case is. Currently I train to failure on pretty much everything, but learning how to do that was like mind blowing to me. And I'll see some people who are just like, okay, like not even breaking a sweat. And I'm over here like it takes me an hour to do my first 2 exercises because it's hip thrusts. I got to set them up. I'm going to failure. I'm doing single leg. It's all of these things that, like, I'm honestly, I feel like I'm training like a wellness or figure girl, and I'm tiny. Like, I'm a tiny human, and I just feel like I'm like pushing myself and going so hard, which I love, but taking it to that next intensity was like mind blowing for me. And that was the first prep that I had literally pushed my body to limits that I didn't even know it could go per his guidance. And I think honestly that was a huge game changer for me. And then seeing my prep right now too, I've put on a significant amount of muscle in a completely natural way. And I think a lot of that is just due to the fact of truly training those areas that I really needed. That was huge for me. So really just sticking to the process of knowing I wanted a pro card. My very first time going into those national preps was insane, but my training had changed immensely when I went to him. I went to him right before, like right after my prior show with the previous coach. I went there like a week later. And then I reversed with him and then started a nationals prep with him. So.
Yeah. The training, it does take time to like learn how to train. Even if you think you know how to train, like there's always different things to try. There's always like add a band or make it harder or do drop sets or, feel like just, okay, completely time your rest periods and, what time of day are you going to train that's going to be the best for you and meal timing. And like, there's just so many 1%. And that's like when we're chasing a pro card, it's like not like almost anyone can get a pro card, but it's so competitive that because anyone could get a pro card in theory, you have to find the 1%. Like you're going after like our waist needs to be just a little tighter than everyone, just a little bit bigger in the glutes. And so that is everything from what you eat to how you train to how you pose to all those little details that you talked about. So when you missed it by one spot, was it like, were you happy? Were you sad? How did you internalize it? And like, did you think that you were getting it? Because if you're in top two, it could go either way. So how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's in the time. Honestly, I think going into nationals, I was like, this is my first time, or any pro qualifier. I'll say that because I did North Americans and nationals. So I will say, going in, I was like, Jenn, let's just get the first call outs. Like, get first call outs and just freaking, pardon my language, but pose your ass off and let's hope you can get it. So I think whenever I got first call outs, I was just like, oh my God, I did it. Like, holy crap. I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And I was just like really proud of like how far I had come. Granted, I had won an overall the year before, but from my understanding now, it was kind of at a smaller show. I think I looked great, but I still wasn't tight enough for North American, so I didn't go that year. So then we prepped for North Americans the next year. And so for me, I was honestly just pumped to get first call outs. And then I was switched to the next position, like the one position out of a pro card right at the last minute. And then I realized it was due to size. So it was like I was holding that other pro card spot back and forth, back and forth. I mean, we were on pose down for like 6 minutes. And then right at the last minute, they switched me with one person. So I was in the third, like the next spot. And I was like, oh, it was kind of defeating. But I think at first I was like, you know what? I've come so far. I've pushed my body so far. I was really, really proud. And it wasn't until, so we took like a month break and then we prepped for nationals that same year. So I did like a 4 to 5 week break. My best friend got married and then we pushed for another 6 to 8 weeks. So then I got first call outs again and I was like, dang right, I'd better get first call outs. Like, let's go. And then I got top 5, but that wasn't the one that I was close to. So I think I was like, you know what, this was a really fun prep. I learned a lot. We'll come back and we'll get it next time. But I think what was very interesting for me was when I stepped off stage and I approached my team, because my team, my coach, like everybody in our circle that was there supporting us, like didn't say anything to me. Reason being is I think they didn't know how I was feeling, right? So they were like, do we hug her and say congratulations, or do we hug her and she's going to cry because she's really upset that she didn't get her card? And then I was like, hey guys, like, it wasn't my time. I came in too shredded. That was my feedback, was I was way too hard, which I totally understood. Like at the time being, we didn't think that, because my feedback for North Americans was to come in tighter, and then I come in tighter, and then they're like, nope, too tight. Like, you know, the subjectivity of it. It is what it is. But I think at first I was just really proud. And so I think this year, yeah, I don't want to say if I don't get it, I'm going to be really upset, but the work that goes into it and knowing that you're so close, I hope that I get it, and I will be disappointed if I don't. But you learn so much along the way. Like, I mean, that's kind of the roulette of this sport, you know, it depends on who's there, it depends on who shows up. And to be honest, I you learn so much about yourself and your body throughout each prep. And honestly, every prep is different. Like I used to think it wasn't, but like it is. And anything I'm doing right now, I did not do at all. Like I haven't trained in a week because my body is just, my coach wants to give my body some rest. It was holding some inflammation, and it actually helps. Like I don't remember the last time. Well, actually, no, we've done that multiple times this prep so far. And like I used to do that maybe one time a year, is take a week off. And now it's like I'm doing it all the time. But I'm like, whoa, like I feel so much better. My inflammation's down. My body's kind of like holding steady, and it just gets tighter when we don't train. And it's like, but you would think like if you told me that my very first prep, I'm like, no, I have to work out every day. I have to do cardio every day. You know, it's always just so different. But I think just knowing I was so close last time, that this time it just keeps motivating me. Like, even though it's not going 100% how we want it to every single day, it's going great now. But at first, you know, we were going to do North Americans this year. My body just wasn't ready around North Americans, and that's fine. So we're continuing to push for nationals. But honestly, I'm just excited to keep doing this. I love this. You know, this isn't my first time job, but full-time job as like a coach or opposing coach or anything. But I love what it continues to teach me. I love the community that it brings around me. And there's just so many different things you can just continue to learn that, I mean, I feel like I'm like bottom tier when it comes to like coaching and all of these things. But I still know so much information, like when I talk to the general public, and I'm like, but for me, again, going back to that, what's the next best thing? There's so much you can do, so much you can learn. And that's kind of what makes me want to also get that pro card and compete at that level, because then at that level, there's even more, and it like broadens your horizons, and you just get to, I don't know, you just get to do so much and learn so much throughout the entire journey. I'm just excited to just continue to do it.
Yeah, it's like you said, there you just kind of keep leveling up, and it's a benefit because you get to push yourself hard in the gym. You're used to having that aspect of like competing through what you did as a kid. You're taking that into adulthood. It's one of the only things that where you can like have a competitive outlet for like a long time. Like it doesn't really end, and it's something that you can like feel like you're working towards every single day. There's very few things where you can do it every single day and feel like you're getting closer to something, and you can like physically like see the work. That's what I like. I'm like, oh, I worked really hard last week, and now I see little lines coming in, or the scale dropped, or it went up, or the shape is changing. So you can control all these pieces. So mistakes along the way. What are those mistakes that you made? What did you learn from first show to last show? What were some big at the early phases? What were some big mistakes that you wish you didn't do?
Yeah, so I will say training is going to be huge, right? Like training, it takes such a big hit for all of it. I think um, one, I guess not one mistake, but one thing that I've learned is like the type of foods that like work better for you versus not, as well as like the communication with your coach. So I had like a time where, not to get like graphic or whatever, but like I wouldn't use the restroom for like 4 days in a row. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I am a grumpy cat if that's not happening. And I felt like a previous coach, like I had continued to push, like, hey, like, what do I do? And they were giving me, you know, quick fixes like mag citrate or like something, you know, Colace, like Miralax, whatever. And I'm like, but me, again, being in like healthcare, I'm like, but that's not telling me why that's happening to me. So why is it happening? So I can prevent that so I don't have to take these things. And it wasn't until I had kind of reached out to some other people and they're like, well, you're eating this type of food, like let's switch to this type of fiber and see if that helped. And literally that's all it took, was switching out some vegetables and switching out starches to like rice or something. Because, and even right now, like I was doing potatoes at the beginning of my prep and I ran into some digestive issues. So we switched those out and I'm not having those issues anymore. So it's crazy to learn, like you think you just have to eat chicken, broccoli, rice, egg whites, potatoes. Like, and yes, those things are great. And yes, I do incorporate those, but there's so much that goes into it as far as what type of vegetable are you eating? Like I learned I can't really eat cruciferous vegetables multiple times a day because it makes me severely bloated. Like I literally look pregnant if I eat broccoli multiple times a day. Um, so I think just like learning different, like learning about nutrition along the way through like self-education, as well as continuing to ask your coach why. Like they should, if they're telling you to do something, you should know why you're doing it, or at least be able to have that open you don't have to question every single little thing, like why am I doing that, why am I doing that. But like if you genuinely want to know and understand, it is totally okay to open the door to ask your coach, okay, why are we making that decision versus what I'm doing now. And most of the time it'll make sense, right? Like, oh, why are we switching out my potatoes? Well, Jen, it's because you're not using the restroom. Okay, like that was a given, right? But you learn so much about nutrition and what works for you, as long as you can advocate for yourself, which is totally my healthcare background coming out too. But training, I would say I've learned so much about nutrition along the way, as far as like things that worked and things that didn't. But I will say a mistake I think that I originally made in the beginning too was like, I'm such a sweets girl, right? And so a lot of the things that I would make when I was tracking macros were sweet things. So like baked oats with protein powder and stevia and cinnamon and sugar-free syrup. And there were so many meals that had all of these like processed sugar-free ingredients. And I think now that I'm where I'm at now and I see like what that does on your body, each prep, like that stuff actually makes you hold inflammation. Is that okay every now and then? Yeah, like I have a protein shake and some rice cakes, those things are, quote unquote processed, but my entire diet is like filled with entirely whole foods. My sauces are completely clean. And I don't want to go on some like, you have to eat organic and unprocessed ingredients. But like when it comes to a prep, like when I started doing literally, I almost do like a low FODMAP situation, not intentionally. It just works better and physically makes me feel better. Like, am I physically exhausted? Yes, it's prep. But like I wake up feeling good every day. I'm not like, I mean, as good as I can. It's hard to explain, but like in the past, I would just try to like get my fix of my sweets by sugar-free syrup and chocolate brownie, protein powder, bake in the microwave with some baking powder, like things that were like quote unquote 0 calories, binging on diet soda in between meals. And now it's like you just realize all of that stuff adds up. And even though something says like 0 calories, there's always like something, unless it's literally water, right? Like there's always technically, even in minuscule, even gum, like I used to eat like 5 or 6 pieces of gum a day, and now I limit to myself to 2. So you just learn a lot of things along the way that you realize it's actually hindering your progress. Even though it sucks, like I've just learned to embrace the suck. And I know that's kind of like overused, but for somebody that is just starting out, I think that's something very important to understand and learn, that it's going to make a difference on what your body looks like on stage if you're constantly trying to like maneuver all these 0 sugar ingredients. I know there's so many people that and I post them too. Like I post macro nutrient meals, with like sugar-free stuff and some processed ingredients, but like there's a lot of people who I see literally just eat that all day. And then like one of their meals is like a whole nutritious meal. You know what I mean? Like they'll wake up, they'll have their greens powder with their collagen powder, and then they'll have their coffee with their oat milk. And then like, that's their breakfast with like a protein shake. And I'm like, that's fine. All that's processed powders and processed ingredients. So where's the whole food? And then for lunch, they're having a yogurt bowl with more protein powder in it and a sugar-free syrup drizzle on top. And that's their lunch. And I'm like, again, other than the yogurt, where's the whole food? Like, you know what I mean? It's like you're constantly making these That's okay every now and then. You know, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but like when people eat that every day, it's like you're also feeding your bad gut bacteria processed food, and it adds up to the bloating, it adds up to the acne, it adds up to the fatigue. It's crazy. So that could be like a
Oh,
literally an
yeah.
hour long podcast. You know what I
It
mean?
could.
Like, but
Yeah, it could.
but
And
it's crazy. Like some people do that.
I did the same thing. And this reverse this last couple, I think the last two, one or two preps, I just like cut it out completely. I'm like, I feel so good now compared to where I was, even though I was leaner. I think my cravings have significantly reduced when it's not that imitation stuff. Like you put the sugar-free
Yes.
syrup and we're talking bottles a week, like that's not okay. Like I always would ask, okay, if I wasn't going to have a whole bottle of maple syrup a week, why am I justifying having a whole bottle of sugar-free syrup in a week? That can't be good for you. Like it can't. And if it's too good to be true, if it really truly like tastes too good, it probably is, or it's doing something. Because if you couldn't achieve that flavor on your own, like mixing it in with the whole foods, there's some
Mhm.
type of chemicals that it's doing something to your insides, right? Where on earth is there a sugar-free maple syrup tree at? Like there's probably not. And it's that way for a reason. You know, your body
Oh
wasn't
my gosh.
sugar-free things. Like nature doesn't make sugar-free. So why are we, like trying to, I think it hurts you because there's the flavor. You're like, ooh, I'm getting something sweet. And it's like that dopamine rush, but then the sugar high is missing. So
Yeah.
there's that lack of, oh, I think I'm getting sugar because it tastes sugar, but then the energy doesn't match. So I feel like it spiked my cravings like insane. And it would
Girl.
lead to the cycle of, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry. Okay, let me do more gum. Let me do more little
You're
pops,
nailing it.
more things.
Absolutely nailing it. Yep.
And
And honestly, half
yeah,
the time it's actually healthier for you to just eat the real thing than to
yeah,
eat a modified version of it. Like
correct.
it's way better for you to eat real maple syrup than sugar-free maple syrup. Like it is what it is. Is maple syrup prep friendly? No, probably not unless you're carb loading 3 days before the show. Probably not. But like I actually noticed that, and I think I'm about this close to asking my coach to switch out my protein shake meal because I actually kind of make it into this like pudding. I don't like drinking protein. Sorry, people, I'm weird, but like I kind of make it into like this pudding consistently and like spread it on my rice cake, so it's almost like a spread. And I realize like I eat this caramel rice cake. It's my last meal of the day, by the way. I don't think of sweets pretty much at all throughout the day. Like, do I love them? Yeah, but like I said, I eat all whole foods. So my gut microbiome has no idea what a cake is right now. So it's not screaming for it. So when I eat that though, it's like, and then at the end of the day, after I eat that, I'm like ravenous for sweets. And I'm
Yes.
like, but I just had a sweet. So like, but it's not a sweet, right? Like it was a vanilla protein powder on top of a protein mix on top of a rice cake. And then I have some almond butter too. But I'm about this close to asking him to switch that meal out to just a straight up whole food because it's like killing me almost at the end of the night because it makes me want that. And again, I don't want anything like that
Yeah.
until right after I have that, which is crazy. But I preach that to a lot of my clients is like, I know it sucks, but like your body is just not used to not having those foods. So it's hormonally screaming at you to continue to eat them, but you have to resist that. And you have to feed them something else that they're going to like, which should be good things. And
Yeah.
then they're not going to want that anymore. You know, it's kind of like those post show meals. Like I'll be honest, I get those freaking PDX cookies that are like massive and like you shove them in your face. Shout out, sponsor me, thanks. Just kidding. But you feel like crap. Like literally an hour later, you're like, oh my god, I'm like, I don't even want to eat anything right now because I just feel like absolute trash. And it's like, but some people eat that all day, you know?
Ah, yes. Okay. So that's good. Post-show treats, it's not a thing. It used to be when I first started competing. It still is a little bit with like new competitors, but it's not anymore. Like when I go to show, I'm not bringing not even an extra like protein bar. I'm bringing exactly the amount of meals that I need till my show. Then the next day, if I'm going to stay like a Sunday or a Monday, I can trust myself to macro track it or just have a kind of a casual day. Most likely you're going to sleep in or like you're gonna have your meal, you're gonna be so full for hours the next day, you probably aren't gonna be that hungry. But after, like, go to your meal, get it out and just don't have it in the hotel room. Like, don't buy a dozen donuts, buy one or two, split it.
Like your favorites, right? Because
Yeah,
there's nothing worse than eating something that's not worth it. I'll be
right.
honest. I
Right. And
hate
then
that.
you buy, I buy it, someone bought me a dozen or this, like, and now you feel like you're wasting it. It's not even that big of a deal. This last prep I did, I think we just went out to eat and then we had like a couple of cookies, but it was a shared thing. And I could have had the option to literally eat whatever I want. I'm like, ooh, I just remember if you go to a cookie the first time that high, it's like an addict. It's the
Yeah,
first
literally.
hit that you're taking after 16 weeks of being clean. You are ruining it with this sweet. So the next time that you are starving or hungry, your brain's gonna go, oh, remember when we dieted for 16 weeks and then how euphoric that cookie tastes? Let's give her cravings of this cookie because it was so like there was nothing comparable. So I just made sure when I was having that meal, I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole food, I had like a poke bowl or something. It's like, this is
Yeah.
just so good. It's just, and really try to switch it from the sweet focus to, oh my gosh, it just tastes good to have carbs and to have vegetables.
Yeah. Well, and half the time too, especially if you're bringing like a support group, most of the time those people buy stuff for you. I would say most of the time, but a lot of the times people want to like bring you something or, and a lot of the time it is sweet treats because they know that like sweet treats are just a love language. It's kind of like the holidays. Like you guys bond over pie. Like I get it. So like I will say I would leave that to people that are coming to your shows to do that because if you hoard, especially if you buy it for yourself, it's literally just going to be haunting you and taunting you in your freezer. And you can easily just pull one out, heat it up, and eat it all. Like easily. I've done it. I've literally done it like years ago. I literally have. So just don't do it. But yeah, I'll be honest, like I'm eating 150 grams of protein a day, which for maybe some people think like that's a lot. I do not weigh 150. I weigh 120. So I'm eating more than my body weight, which is fine. I'm also in prep. Um, like for, a normal calculation that people want to go off of, we'll just say that. But like, I think I could literally eat 250 grams of protein. Like literally all I want right now is way more of my chicken and then like a huge like steak or just like sushi. Like that is all I want. I could care less about a cookie, a cake, crumble. I don't care. I want a steak or I want like 4 times the amount of chicken that I have in my bowl right now. Like it is insane. I'm like, this is weird. Like I used to be that person that
Yeah.
craved all those sweets, right? And I've cut them out for so long, I just don't really care anymore. Like those are nice to have, but again, you just go back to remembering how you feel whenever you gorged on them, and it's like, ugh, like I felt like I just wanted to lay down on a cold floor in my
Yeah.
bathroom, like, So yeah, man, oh God, I could go to town on my chicken right now. That sounds so bodybuilder of me, but I guess I'm in the right sport.
Yes, I know, like the protein heavy. And I think coming from Whole Foods, I think it does make your body look different. Like there's just a different sharpness. And I think your core looks tighter. I feel like the inflammation that's trying to process it. Just when you do Whole Foods, like that's what we were supposed to have. So it does make a difference. So looking back at all of your different shows, what is favorite memories?
I would say I did come from a family where like we all did competitive sports, but no one's ever been a bodybuilder. So I will say one of my favorite memories was my families don't come to a lot of my shows. So I have a lot of siblings and I didn't grow up in the best environment, so they don't just have like money to blow. So coming to my shows is kind of difficult because I enjoy traveling for my shows and 10 of them can't travel, to Dallas. So like they came to a show that was more local. And so I loved having them see what I was doing. My family was really accepting of it. Like they weren't that like, ew, why are you doing that? You look gross. Why can't you just eat something? Like they didn't really pressure me. My family's really great about that. And they're like, oh, she's got her mind to something. Cool. Like good luck. Let us know what you need. Awesome. So I was really lucky in that aspect but for them to come and see like what I'm doing and like why I'm doing it was really great. I had my mom and grandma come to one, and then I actually road tripped with my younger sister to one, which was cool because she loved it. She was like running around the stage, like taking pictures of me. And granted, those were shows too. Like I looked like absolute trash. Like looking back on them, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was my first show, my first competitive season, but it was the second show that season. And then the one my sister came to was like the next show where I kept eating trail mix. So um wasn't really like my best physique, but it was cool to like have them there. But I will say honestly, like knowing now like where I want to go in the sport, I would say my nationals experiences were great because I actually came in shape. I was proud of the physique that I brought on stage. And then now it's just like the little minor things that we know we need to tweak to get me where I want to be. And then I have a coach who can get me there. So I think that's where I feel way more solidified and confident in this current prep as well as in the future, like knowing exactly what they want and knowing exactly what they look for. So that nationals experience in 2022, both of those shows really taught me so much. And I made so many memories with everybody that came. And my team, like I had never met them before. And so seeing like, you know, everybody's all like social media hype and then like you meet people in person and you're like, oh, like this is really cool. Like, you know, we all get along and it was really nice to put like faces to names and like everybody just kind of like, what's up? Like hug you as soon as you're there because they know how hard you worked to like meet. I mean, you know, you compete too. And I know you're in the WBFF too now, but like you just meet so many cool people backstage and like new friends or like people you can connect with online or like get ideas from. And it's just cool because everybody's like, nobody really cares because we all just work so freaking hard and let's just go out there and have fun. Most of the time, I will say some people who aren't like that, but those are just the best. Like I love just connecting with like-minded people, which is another reason I wanted to reach out to you about like this because I followed you for a long time, and it's just building. You just build so much. You learn so much about yourself, but just learning so much about other people in the journey in bodybuilding in general.
Yeah, you meet a lot of people. And then it's cool because everyone you meet early, like either they're coming with you and they're on that grind with you. So there's a few, and then there's a few that they kind of took a detour and they're having kids, or
Yeah.
they decided to do a different sport, or they're doing career stuff, and you just kind of get
Yeah.
to meet up with them, or they're still involved, or now they're coaches and they've retired, or just little things that's but everyone that wants to stay still is drawn to it. So you'll meet up at events like Olympias and Arnold's and Expos and other things, and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, we competed together years ago, and you get to catch up and you
Yeah.
have all these relationships, especially when you travel for shows. Like, where are you from? Most of the time, no one's from the area. Everyone's traveling. Like nationals, it is a travel show. So like rarely is someone ever from where it's at. It's like, oh my gosh, you're here, you know, this show. So it is cool. It's like, oh, you've been working towards the card for, oh, you're a rookie, it's your first year, or oh my gosh, you're 5 years, 3 years, 2 years into this journey. So you get to see all these different ages and everyone, which is really exciting. And like it's one of the funnest parts too, because you're like, oh my gosh, you're highly competitive. You're highly competitive. Like you get each other.
And I think it's even interesting too to see. So I've only done North Americans and nationals, and I know nationals doesn't have like the masters categories,
Yeah.
but North Americans does, and it's crazy to see like 65-year-old women up there just getting it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like it's
They
just
look
so cool.
better than the open class. You're
I'm
looking
like,
at it and you're like, wait, what at age category
yeah,
did they say 50 or 45? I was like, there's no way. And
it's
it's
so
really,
motivating.
yeah,
It's motivating too because like again like being in healthcare, so my healthcare background, by the way, I was an ICU nurse. I work as a stroke coordinator now, so I'm more on like an administrative role, but I worked in ICUs my entire career as a bedside nurse, and so you'd see people who are like 45, they look like they're 70, they can't walk because they don't take care of themselves, and it's like I go to bodybuilding shows and there's like 65-year-old women and men up there like shredded, walking without a cane or walker, and you're just like, the decisions you make now, like I'm 30, the decisions you make now is what leads you to your outcomes at that age. And I cannot stress that enough. And I'm not going to get on that pedestal, but like it is so important the decisions you make every single day, coming from your food to your movement to your nutrition sources, to your supplementation, which you don't necessarily have to have if your nutrition's on point. But, like I just get like so like passionate about it because I think I'm jaded by what I've seen every single day. And, the accidents happen. Like, if I'm in like a trauma ICU, someone's in a car accident, like that's not something you can prevent, but like type 2 diabetes and things like that, or like some like morbid obesity comes with its own, issues. And there's a lot of things that you cannot prevent. I totally understand that. But when it comes to health and nutrition and movement, you can honestly prevent and or reverse a lot of it. And it's kind of hard to see that aspect when you get to see people who aren't like that in the sport that we do. There are people who aren't succumbing to being unhealthy. There are people who took charge of their life. And even though bodybuilding, isn't the most healthiest sport, and I'm sure most people listening to this understand that too, but it teaches you so many healthy habits that if I never bodybuild again, I'd still kind of like live like one, as far as like eating good foods and like bringing my foods with me, trying to limit meals out or choosing better meals when I am out, because I don't want to be 60 laying in a bed getting bed sores because I can't move my own body. Like that's my biggest fear. I think it's actually funny. I was just telling somebody the other day, they're like, how do you like, stay so motivated to like go to the gym? And I'll be like, I'll be honest, I've worked in a neuro ICU where people have strokes and they physically can't move a side of their body, like physically cannot, they don't even realize it's there. Like it's crazy. I mean, I don't know. I get goosebumps thinking about it. But like, if I'm leaving work and I'm griping and complaining about doing my cardio, I literally in my head, and sometimes I'll say it out loud in my car, like, you have 2 working legs, get your ass up and go to the gym. You can do it. They can't. Like what if I had a stroke right now? I don't know what I would do with myself if I couldn't move my legs. So I'm going to take every single advantage I can to do that. And especially being the young women that we are right now, sorry, not to get on a healthcare binge, but like with the years of birth control and like the, if you've had COVID, there's like an abundance of blood coagulation issues. A stroke is probable for a lot of people taking birth control who are on it for years. So it's like, I don't know. I always think of long-term effects, and it's like, well, if I were to stroke out today, I want to be able to use my legs as much as I can. So that sounds so cliche, but like, it's so motivating.
Yeah.
I don't even want to say it's motivating to see people who can't move their body. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, it's a wonderful reminder, a gentle reminder that we have the opportunity, that we can go do cardio, not that we have to. It's that I am literally able to go do this, and I'm happy I'm able to go do this, because I don't know what I would do if I couldn't.
Yeah. And I think that's good to know. Like, even if you're not interested in bodybuilding, there's benefits to moving your body. Yeah. And we're not doing it just because of how we look. It is simply how we feel. If all mirrors, all social media, all pictures were removed, I'm still going to eat this way, and I'm still going to go to the gym because of the feeling, how you feel. It's so different. You can physically, like, you just feel strong and powerful. It's like when you wake up, you have all the energy to do everything. There's no aches, there's no pains. It is, oh my gosh, I feel great. I'm light, I'm agile, I can move, I can go and do all of these fun things. I can travel, I can walk around. Like, being in shape is a luxury. There's other people that aren't, that just, they wake up and they just, from the moment they wake up, they're just feeling the pain and, oh my gosh, my bones and my joints from carrying extra weight, and my digestion and everything is painful. And it's just so normal that they don't know that you can feel so good. And it is through small choices every day. Like the micro habits that prep have taught me. It's like, oh, it doesn't take this. You don't have to have these huge weight swings. It's like, okay, I just need to have a little bit of activity. Like, my bare minimum is I still want to get outside and have a walk. Even if I don't work out, I still want to do some type of movement. So I like that, because it's like long term. And again, bodybuilding, whatever you're doing, if you're a young person listening to this, this is great. It's like a wake up call. You have so much time. Even if you are like, there's no, health and fitness is any age. like you can start a transformation at literally any age. It's not too late. And I get it all the time, like, oh my gosh, it's too late for me, or my body doesn't work like that. It literally works the same. It does.
Mhm.
It's just different. So I like bodybuilding because you get to see, 70-year-olds, 60-year-olds, and they look better than me, and they're out there and they're just living the lifestyle. I'm like, okay, that is goals. I still want to move because there's two different paths, and it's very clear. It's like, do you want to spend your grandma, grandpa years as, being with your grandkids, being able to pick them up, like being fun with your kids too? Or would you rather have them visit you in a nursing home? Like, it's two different lives. You could really enjoy yourself and have all the foods and the alcohols and not work out, but that's the choice that you're going to go down. Or, make some sacrifices. You can still have things in moderation, but then have a very long life on that path.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I think about that too. Like, I don't have like a family and kids or anything right now, but it's like I would hate to not be able to help myself and my child, say in like an emergency. Like, what if, there's
Yeah.
a fire in your house and you have to jump out of a second story window? Can you do that? First off, can you fit out of the window? Can you jump at like agility wise? And then can you catch your child? Like, can you physically do that? Like, I think about something like that. Or if there's an active shooter at a parade, can you pick up your child and run away? A lot of people can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I even see it here. So God forbid, I hope I'm never out of shape. And honestly, New York's going to keep me in it because you walk everywhere. Like my grocery store's 3 blocks away. I don't have a car.
Yeah.
Like, you're walking with an umbrella, you're carrying your bags. Like, that's what it is. And I bike to work. Like, I kind of don't, I have to stay in shape, but like, it's kind of hard to not. It'd be very, very difficult. And there's hills and like, I just couldn't imagine not being able to do that. A lot of people fall into a lot of disparities or don't eat or eat delivery because they can't physically go walk to get their groceries here or something. So I think like stuff like that kind of scares me. But a lot of the things that I do, again, it's not to have abs and it's not to be shredded and be veiny and like step on stage. Like, bodybuilding is a hobby for me. It's not going to be here forever. I'm not going to be competing. I mean, people just, retire. This isn't something you could do every year for the rest of your life, stepping on stage to be a bodybuilder. You just can't. And I know that, but I want to be able to show up for myself and my future family, even my nieces and nephews right now. Like, I want to be able to go outside and play with them and not feel like I have to sit down or take a break. I mean, we all do, right? Because kids never stop. But like, I don't want to have to be able to sit. I don't have to like sit and throw a ball. I want to be able to go play catch with them and like
Yeah.
be more like agile. And that comes with taking better care of yourself every day.
I love it.
That's what's important.
Okay, so back to your journey, and I think this is a great stopping point too, or at least getting to the end of our episode. Is there anything that we haven't touched on your journey that you really wanted to make sure that we talked about?
I know. I think the only other thing I was thinking of is, a lot of competitors you do see, like, I don't want to say a lot, but I do want to just give a shout out to the people that this isn't their full-time job. This isn't, they're not at home just coaching and posing people all day. And that is a hard job too. Like, I do all my coaching on the weekend, for the most part. And so my Saturdays and Sundays are pretty much filled with my client check-ins and posing sessions on top of my own cardio and gym. And it's hard. Like, my coach is like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but he'll text me back at 10 p.m. if I really have a question. Like, it doesn't stop. Whereas for me, I can kind of clock in and clock out, and then I go home and I can continue my job. But, I do just want to just remind people too that like, there's a lot of people out there that do this just for fun and do this as like their second time. And it, not that it comes with worth or more difficult challenges. It's just different, and it's just a different way of navigating, but it's a way to do it. Just like you can, obviously I can't cook all my meals from home. So sometimes when I get a meal plan and like, I can't just like cook my food in coconut oil then and there, but it doesn't taste good if it's just melted over some vegetables. Like, I have to maneuver. I have to say like, hey, this doesn't work for me because I have to go heat it up in an office. And then that also comes with saying no to going out to eat with coworkers and saying no to the donuts in the break room. There's different challenges when it goes both ways, but it's so cool to always just remember like what works for you, like no matter what situation you're in when it comes to getting on stage. You know, I worked 12-hour shifts, I worked 48-hour overnight shifts, I've worked 8 to 4, I've been off for 3 months. Like I've kind of done it all as far as like the day-to-day navigation. But you could always find a way to work for you. Granted, the only thing I don't really haven't done is I'm not a mother, so I do not have children or anything to work around, which comes with its own challenges, right? Like having snacks around the house or um, having people's different schedules and like running around. But if you just stick to your goal and you find a way and you ask questions like, hey, this isn't working for me, but how can I make it work for me? Don't use this isn't working for me as an excuse to just not do it or to give up on yourself. There's always a way. And honestly, there's always somebody busier than you. There's always somebody with more on your plate that's getting it done no matter what. And so I think, again, it's just navigating and pivoting to make your goals work for you in the long run is what's actually going to make them work for you. So I just wanted to say that's kind of like important, especially for somebody that does live a busy life or has a majority of their life is outside of coaching and or being a bodybuilder.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've prepped at the beginning of my journey. I was working actually my first, so I've worked a lot of different jobs. Like now it's like easier, but at the beginning I was like in college, I was doing finals, like there was doing all this stuff. I was working at a restaurant. That was one part of my life. Then I was corporate life. I was working night shift, 12 hours, 4 days a week. Then I switched different, still corporate Monday through Friday, like 8 to 6, plus random travels that I couldn't control. Then it was okay, now it's a solid 8 to 4. That's where it was, and still some travels in there. And now it's 8 to 4 still, but then I have my coaching on top of it too. It's just busier. It is, I don't want to say it is easier when you're kind of in the sport. It's just, it never stops. Like it's different. Like you said, it's like, okay, well, I have traditional hours. It's more like, I design bikinis. So it's not like mentally life or death on the line. Like you don't have to be that sharp to be like, okay, let's do purple fabric. But it is different. And so it dieting never gets easier, but you're right. You can do it at any job, any level, you can make it work. Health and fitness is for everyone. There is always a way. Most of the time it's through nutrition if you physically don't have, or if you don't have the time to get in. You don't have to have like, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to have 2 to 3 hours a day. It's literally 30 minutes. 30 minutes is enough. Like something's better than nothing. So I think this is a good ending point for our last question. So are you team cupcake? Or are you team protein shake?
I know I just said I don't love sweets, but I hate drinking protein shakes. So I have to go team cupcake. You can make a cupcake out of protein powder. So,
True.
um,
Okay, well, if you could be a cupcake, what is your flavor?
ooh, that's a good one. Highly underrated, but I absolutely love, I would say either lemon or red velvet. I've been on a
You're
lemon love recently.
I'm a lemon lover, so that is my jam. But if anyone wants to work with you, reach out to you or follow your journey, where can they do so?
Yeah, so I have all my links on my Instagram, which is at Jenn Garland. That's JENNN, 3 N's, and then Garland, like the Christmas tree stuff. So I have a link tree in my bio that has everything in there from my coaching questionnaire, posing. And then I also have like some glute guides in there, some other guides, some macro cookbooks. I run it's called Aldi Fit Kitchen. So I started that back in St. Louis where we actually had an Aldi. We don't have Aldis here, or they're far away. But I always try to post like macro friendly, healthier recipes for people that are specifically budget friendly, like someplace like Aldi, or at least ingredients you can still get from there. And that's just kind of like a different way to either make something sweeter better for you, or high protein meals, or just better choices in general. So it'll be things like, I mean, I can make like a macro friendly chicken fried rice. I just did like pumpkin cheesecake muffins, like Starbucks sells, but like a way better version. So things like that. And whether you actually track your macros or not, I always put them in there subjectively based off the ingredients I use. But it's also just knowing that you can make this and you feel better and you chose better ingredients is kind of what matters at the end of the day. So you can find that at Aldi Fit Kitchen as well, but that's also linked on my Instagram. So
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us today. I'm wishing you very good luck. Hopefully, this next prep is your time for the card. We'll definitely be following along.
thank you so much. I appreciate it.